Chuck Schumer, Senator from New York, the Senate Minority Leader, is here with us. Senator, thank you so much for being with us. Before we get to the president's words about you, which happened before the speech, let's talk about the speech itself. For you, if you were looking for something nice to say about it, what would you say?
Well, I would say there's very little nice to say about it. It's sort of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The excitement, enthusiasm was all in the Mr. Hyde parts. I think Stacey Abrams showed the president what real leadership was last night. She was thoughtful, she was caring. She talked about her family and the American dream is fading out of reach for too many American families. And the president was political, divisive, calculating, even nasty at times. You know, you can't talk about comity and working together and give a speech that is so divisive. That just doesn't fly. So in the areas where he tried to reach out, drug prices, transportation, infrastructure, there was no meat, there was no enthusiasm. All the enthusiasm was for the divisive parts like immigration, abortion, things like that. So it was not a good speech. The president's hurting. He knows he's hurting, but he doesn't seem able to dig himself out of the hole and give a truly bipartisan speech and start working with us. We want to work with him.
Will you work with him on infrastructure, on drug pricing, on AIDS prevention, some of the things that he did call for last night?
If he's real about it, yes. The trouble is we've had infrastructure week about 10 times and no real infrastructure plan. His last plan put no money into infrastructure. Can't do it. Can't build a road without some dollars. When he last did drug prices, the stocks of the pharmaceutical companies went up because it was such a weak-kneed plan. So it's got to be real. It can't just be words. And so much of his stuff is just hypocritical. He talked about ending the prohibitions on pre-existing conditions. But at the same time he talked about that in his speech, his administration's in a lawsuit saying end protections for pre-existing conditions. And that kind of hypocrisy was rife throughout the entire speech. Do you think anyone believes that if there was another president, we'd be at war with North Korea? That was a real eye roller.
It was a statement that does not have any foundation to back it up. But some of the things he said about the economy are true. The unemployment rate is very, very low. You are starting to see wage increases in the middle class. Isn't that something Democrats can say, hey, it's a good thing?
Well, the problem is that the president's policies have been directed at helping the wealthy, and middle-class incomes are not going up the way they should. They're not going up in line with productivity. 83% of the profits that the major companies make goes to stock buybacks and dividends, and that's after his tax cut. His tax cut, he said, would create $4,000 increase in the average middle-class family's pocket. Instead, it's created greater increased wealth for corporate America. That just doesn't fly. So the state of the economy is not helping middle-class families. The state of health care is not helping middle-class families. His administration, the state of his administration is chaos, and his foreign policy is inside out, patting dictators on the back like Putin and Kim Jong-un and attacking our allies. The American people know this is a mess.
Do you think
the president just can't dig his way out of the hole?
Very quickly on Kim Jong-un, he announced there will be a summit February 27th and 28th. Do you not want him to meet with the North Korean leader?
Of course I want him to meet, but it's got to be real. After the last one, he said, we will no longer have a nuclear North Korea. And if anything, since the last summit, they've gotten more nuclear in certain ways. So this is not a reality show. This is not a one-day hit. This is serious work. And the president seems unable to do it on North Korea or most anywhere else.
Let me ask you on the subject of unity and comity with AT.
Yes.
Listen to what he said about the politics of revenge last night.
We must reject the politics of revenge, resistance, and retribution, and embrace the boundless potential of cooperation, compromise, and the common good.
Your reaction?
Well, his first 2 years of the administration were not that at all. He loved divisiveness. He loved hot-button issues that inflamed his base but divided America. The speech was more of the same. The most enthusiastic parts, the parts that seem to have the most weight, were the divisive parts. He's got to change to make America better. He's got to change to work with us in a bipartisan way. Look, we just had the shutdown. The president is correctly blamed for the shutdown. He wanted it, and he didn't seem to back off in any way. He didn't mention the word shutdown, but he's sticking to the wall, and the American people know that the wall is a bad idea. And if he insists on it, I think our Republican friends in the Congress will realize how bad the first shutdown was and try to overrule him.
You said the president needs to change. Do Democrats bear any responsibility here? Do you need to take any steps toward the president, whether it be on border security or another subject?
We're willing to do border security. We always have. We offered border security to the president. So we have always tried to be bipartisan. We have tried to work with our Republican colleagues. And in fact, when the president stays out of it, we get it done. The last two budgets, the president stayed out of it, and we got great budgets.
Are they getting it done behind closed doors now? Are the Senate negotiators and the House negotiators, the appropriators, are they getting it done?
I believe, John, if the president stays out of it, we will get a deal, a good deal that Democrats and Republicans, House and Senate, can support. It's when the president weighs in with his heavy hand, his unrealistic heavy hand, he doesn't know how to negotiate, that things get messed up. So if he stays out of it, yes, I believe the odds are very high we will get a deal.
Let me ask you specifically about something the president said about you. And this was in a meeting that he had with network anchors yesterday. The New York Times reports that he called you a nasty son of a bitch.
Yeah, so much for inclusiveness, so much for working together. I criticize the president. That's part of my job as leader and part of my job as an American. And his answers should be on the merits. I said yesterday, it got under his skin, evidently, that 364 days of the last year he's divisive. We hope this one day speech will, if it emphasizes some kind of comedy, will be more than a day. Instead of answering that on the merits, he uses an epithet. That's like a 10-year-old in a schoolyard in Brooklyn or Queens. It just doesn't work.
You said what you said got under his skin. Do you try to get under his skin?
No, I try to talk the truth. But, you know, this president doesn't like to hear the truth. When you news people tell him the truth, he calls it fake news. When politicians call him tell him the truth, Democrat or Republican, he calls them names. He called John McCain names yesterday in that interview. Please, this is an American hero who's gone from us.
One of the things the president said yesterday was that we can't have legislation while at the same time having investigations.
Yeah, I mean, this was another one. One of the functions of the Congress, the Article 1 section of government from the days of the Founding Fathers, was oversight of the executive branch. And the president says, if you investigate me, I'm not going to make progress. That's doing what he did with the shutdown, holding the American people hostage. You know what I think it shows, John? He's scared. He's got something to hide. Because if he had nothing to hide, he'd just shrug his shoulders and let these investigations go forward. He's afraid of them.
Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts who was running for president, told the Washington Post and CNN, or didn't deny to CNN, that she did sign a document in the 1980s where she identified herself as an American Indian. This was for registration to the Texas bar. Has she done enough, again, to explain how she has identified over the years here?
I think she's apologized. I think she's handled it well. I think people ought to be debating the many interesting ideas that she's putting out.
One other question on politics in Virginia. The state of Virginia, of course, Ralph Northam under attack for the racist photo that appeared on his yearbook page. Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, there is a woman who has come forward and says that she was assaulted by him at the 2004 Democratic Convention in Boston. Do you feel that this charge needs to be investigated? What answers do you need from the Lieutenant Governor?
I don't know any of these details, but when a woman makes a serious allegation, it ought to be taken seriously.
Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, it is a pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Likewise, John.
Great to see you on New Day. Come back very soon.
Thank you. Nice to talk with you.